Dr. Miller here with another Journal Club, one that you might find interesting. I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of these studies like this one. I picked this one out, and I probably wouldn't have that much interest in it, but I wanted to make a video. By the way, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and if you're more than welcome to see if you like this video before you take that kind of commitment and push the like button. But subscribe if you haven't already. If you've been watching some of my videos and enjoy the content, be sure to check out the library of videos I have on lots of different topics, journal clubs, book clubs, and so on and forth. All right, this particular journal club, I'm going to do a video eventually. I just haven't got a time to it about the difference between training men and women and considerations to train men and women, and how a coach might train them differently, or if you're a man or a woman, how you might need to supplement your training in different ways. But I realize in the world we live in today, the question is, are men and women different? And so there's a lot of these type of studies. What I'm going to mention in a second. So this is the title of the study: Handgrip Strength of Young Men, Women, and Highly Trained Female Athletes. I thought this was an interesting study because of the addition of the female athletes. Handgrip strength, is it important? Well, if you can't grip it, you can't lift it. So hand grip's been used a long time as a measurement of general strength. And if you can't grip it, you can't hold it, you can't move it. Okay? And so I think this is a good surrogate measure of total body strength. It's not perfect by any means, but it's still a good measure. Okay? And so this study used a hand grip, and it did a nice job. What I liked as well is it tried to account for size of the hand. So he didn't just give the same hand grip to the same, to a woman who has a smaller hand. It tried to make everything as equal as possible. It took lean body mass as well. So when men are bigger, and I'll talk about the numbers, significantly bigger than women. Well, is it just because men are bigger, or is there something else going on? Are men still stronger than women when you take into account their lean body mass? I wanted to start though with this. This is, by the way, let me tell you what the study is. I mentioned the title: Handgrip Strength of Young Men, Women, and Highly Trained Female Athletes by Leyk, L-E-Y-K. I probably said that wrong. Published in a prestigious journal, one that means recognized. It's not just like a journal that I would slap together. European Journal of Applied Physiology. So this is a respectable journal. This was published in 2007. Okay, 2007. Now, in the intro of this paper, I wanted to read this part. This is from the authors. This present study has three major aims, and it goes through the first aim, which is providing some, part of this is like, well, how much more do women need to gain strength in order to perform tasks that are involved with physical tasks, like military service, firefighter, okay? So I was just trying to get some norm data on this group of 20 to 25-year-old individuals, young people. This study was done in younger folks. Number two, to evaluate the potential influence of biometric factors on hand grip strength. So in other words, accounting for hand grip size, thropometric size. So I had to say it again. I'm sorry. I don't know why I butchered that word. I've only said it 1,000 times, but no, not that many times. That's exaggeration. The third one, though. This is what the author said. It is well known that women possess considerably smaller absolute muscle strength than men. And this is from me. The general consensus was women have about 50% upper body strength and muscle size, and about 70% muscle size and strength as men. It's just kind of a general from the research literature. This is why when you see really just fantastic female athletes, they tend to have, especially sports like CrossFit and weightlifting, they tend to have a very well-built upper body, right, and relative to other women, and even some really good muscle growth. That's unusual. That's a mom and dad, genetic feature. Doesn't mean women can't gain strength, and we'll see that in a minute here. It just means that mom and dad can really instill some genetics there that can push that envelope a little bit. All right, now. And consider this statement here. It is well known that women possess considerably smaller absolute muscle strength than men. I'm going to finish this here. When women have to be assigned to physically demanding workplaces with similar absolute loads for both sexes, military service, firefighters, so absolute loads, so they're not relative, it is paramount importance to estimate the potential margin of improvement in muscle strength by exercise and training. So in other words, I want to know how much more women can gain strength. I want to read this part again one more time. It is well known that women possess considerably smaller absolute muscle strength than men. That statement does not have a citation. It doesn't have a citation or citations. So these authors stated that without a citation in a reputable journal. That means that they're sure that this information is just information. Like, it's not even something you have to cite. You could argue, say, well, they should have cited it, but then the peer reviewers would have said, what that needs? That's a pretty bold statement. You need to cite that. This is not cited. So just keep that in mind. This was published in 2007. Okay, I'll let you think about that. All right, so let's look at this study. It's an interesting study. Again, this was the average age for the men. There's 1,654 men, 533 women, and 60 of these elite athletes. 45 of them are judokins, judo athletes. So if you know anything about judo, it requires some hand grip strength. And the other ones were handballers, so also requires some grip strength. Okay, it's not, if you're American, you're probably not as familiar with the sport, but it's very popular in Europe, really anywhere else but the United States. And the average age was 21 years old for the men and women. They're untrained, because remember, we have 3 groups: men, women, untrained. Okay, and then these female, we'll say, they called them elite athletes, and they were national of athletes. So we can argue if that's elite or not, but I would say they probably are. And the judokins were about 18.8. They were almost 19 years old. The handballers a little older at 22.6, plus or minus 4.7. Okay, 16 to 18 to 30-year-olds. All right. Now, the hand grip trick was done 15-second hold, as hard as possible, adjusted for hand size. Okay, adjusted through height. Okay. Lean body mass was determined. Body fat was determined, so they could compare, like I mentioned before, they could look at the potential differences between men and women and these female athletes, taking into account just body size. So then the untrained men and women were broken down into quintiles. So 5 groups based on the median. Median is the middle, all right, the median. So the median score, for example, for lean body mass, right, let's just say total mass, so body weight, so you can get an idea, was 76.6, where the 95th percentile strength people was 100.9. Okay, 100.9, so much bigger individuals, and not surprisingly, they were in the 95th percentile for strength. Okay, so in other words, if you just look at the body weights, you can see for both men and women, the larger somebody, the larger average, right, the larger average for these different quintiles, the stronger the individuals were. Okay, and these quintiles were established based on a box plot, right? If you're not familiar with box plot, here, let me draw a picture since I don't want to show this as copyrighted. All right, so sometimes it's called a box and whiskers plot. It looks like this. Okay, and so you have the median in the middle here. Okay, and then the top and the bottom of the box, so that's within the range, and then you have the outliers, which were the whiskers, right? And then depending on how far the outliers are, you can make a determination. And this is how you make your quintiles, right? This is where you get the spread in the data. Is you get the median, you get the box, that's the next quintile, and then you get the whiskers all the way out to the edges. Those are your outliers. Okay, those are your outliers. So hopefully that makes sense. So bottom line is we get these quintiles of strength. Okay, quintiles of strength. So the groups all did the hand grip, right? 15-second hold. Keep in mind. What was the results here? Hopefully that makes sense. So the hand grip was again adjusted. It was just 90 degrees off like a preacher curl, and they squeezed it as hard as it could 15 seconds. So you get a max score and you get a mean. Okay, you get a max or an average over the full 15 seconds. All right, so the maximal for the men was 540.8. By the way, this was I mentioned, I might have forgot, this is a German study, and this was, these young people were taken from across a bunch of occupation, university students, the untrained individuals. Okay, now that could be a limitation of the study, but if we'll see how big the differences are. All right, so even if it's not representative of all women and represent all men, how big are the differences? Well, let's see. Okay, so maximal grip strength for men was 540.8 plus or minus 87. This is in newtons, and in women was 329.4. This was statistically significant. Okay, this was statistically significant. Mean score, so over the whole 15-second, was 460.5 plus or minus 79.4 for men, and 277.8 plus or minus 52.8 newtons for women. Also statistically significant. So in summary, between the two maxes, you have about a difference of 210 mean, right, based on the mean, 210 newtons of force. That's statistically significant and significant. And in the mean area, right, it was around 200, maybe a little less than 200 newtons. Also statistically significant. Okay, so that's a big change in force. That's statistically significant and meaningfully significant, right? It's not just now when we looked at the whole time that was held. So the percentage of max held, right? So you hit the peak. There's some nice figures in here. The average peak, like we just said with men, was 540, and then what did that end up at? Like how much did it decline? Well, men maintained about 85% and women about 83.4. There was enough. This is what happens when you have a lot of people in the study, is you can get statistical significance very easily. And so there was a statistically significant difference between the two, but it was probably not meaningful. So 85.3 and 84.3. So men and women have about the same decay rate. Okay. And if I'm eyeballing this, to be honest with you, women and I've seen this in other research, women tend to hold their strength better than men. There's a nice review article, I'll have to go find it, it was about 10 years ago now, that was done looking at all these hand grip studies, and women tend to hold their strength better than men. Not surprising because of muscle fiber typing being at the core of it, type 1 versus type 2X. Estrogen plays a role as well. Okay, these are all things from that study, that review article that I read many years ago. Okay? All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the thing here. So this is from the authors. The woman with the highest hand grip, so this is the untrained women. The woman with the highest hand grip force reached only the 33rd percentile of the male volunteers. So an untrained woman, the best that the untrained woman did, the best untrained woman only reached 33% of the male volunteers. Okay? In terms of the breakdown. She reached the 33rd percentile of the male sample. Okay? So if we were just going to put that in real simplistic terms, you know, in this study, the best hand grip that a woman could reach in the untrained individuals in this particular sample was 33%. That's the highest. Okay? So is that meaningfully different? Yes. That's not, we're throwing newtons at you, but here's the best woman could only score 33% of that of a man. Okay? And untrained men. What about when you adjust for lean body mass? Okay? So that's fine. Men are just bigger. So if I looked at, you know, the body weight, I'll just take the median group. These were statistically significant, by the way. The body weight of man was 78.2, or sorry, no, the mean was 76.6, and for a woman it was 62.2. So that's a difference of about 14 kilos. Lean body mass, and this is just the median, is 43.39 lean body mass for a woman, and 62.73. So again, you're about that's about 20 kilograms difference. Men are so much bigger than women. Men are bigger than women. Yes. What if we account for that lean mass change? Men have so much more lean mass, it's just because they have more lean mass? When the study accounted for through statistical analyses, multiple linear regression, so forth. And now I'm not just blowing over that reputable ways to analyze this, not just like, well, I think that statistically analyzed carefully. Okay. The way they did it was very carefully done. All right. The regression equation that produced was, if you know what this means, it's R squared was 0.765. That's pretty darn good. That's a strong effect. This is the information that was generated out of this particular set of data, and the conclusions they draw is pretty solid. Okay, roughly 90 newtons. Okay, roughly 90 newtons difference between men and women. 90 newtons still. That's statistically significant if you count for lean body mass. Okay, so it's not just being bigger; it's by virtue of men and women being different. That's probably have to do with fiber typing. Okay, not only does men and women different size, weight, right, and more lean body mass, that men have more. Men are just stronger as a result of being men. Okay, I'm not peddling anything here, by the way. I'm just telling you what the study says. All right, this is what we used to call science. All right, this is actually pretty simple, basic stuff too. In contrast to lean body, I highlighted something. This is the authors. In contrast to lean body mass, no statistically relevant influence was found for body height and body fat in both men and women. So in other words, lean body mass is the only thing that seemed to have any sort of effect, because they took all these other things, size, height, all these things, didn't really matter. Okay, lean body mass did. It had a profound effect, but it still was statistically significant between men and women. All right, so let's throw the trained female athletes in. Let's see how they compared to the men. The highly trained female athletes, their max was 443.6, and their mean was 374. So if you go back to the men here again, let me flip back over. Remember the men was 540 was their max, and their average was 460. And the max for the trained female was 443, so better than the untrained women, who was 329. By almost 120-ish, and this is the averages. And by the way, the variation was much tighter now on these trained female athletes. So in the women, the untrained women, it was like plus or minus 57, and the women here was 38. So again, more homogeneous group, not surprisingly. And then the mean was 374 for the trained, and the mean for the men was 460. So you're still looking about 100 Newton difference. Okay. Now, what this equates to then, this is from the authors, the strongest female athlete had a maximal hand grip force of 559 newtons. That's the strongest female in this whole study. That's pretty good grip strength. That translated into 58th percentile of men. So if you remember before, the strongest untrained woman, the highest that she would be ranked among the men was the 33rd percentile. With the trained women, it's improved, absolutely, but it's still only 58% of untrained men. That's a trained woman, okay, female athlete. So the gain there is significant and impressive, okay, but even a trained female athlete, you could argue, well, this is not like a strong woman competitor. Okay, that's fine. But judokan is still a grip strength sport. Okay, it's a combat sport. All right, and so you still have, we could say there's maybe a little bit more or less, but this is still only 58th percentile. And untrained men, not trained men. If these were trained judokan men, you probably would still have that same kind of disparity. All right. There's some nice figure. There's another nice figure here looking at cumulative percentage and then force max between men and women. Just you can visually see the difference is what I'm trying to get at. I paused there just because I didn't know what I want to say there. Visually see the difference, especially as the percentage rises, the strength really separates, right? So as the stronger men are, the more they even separate from women, if that makes sense. So, like the incline in female scores is kind of linear, where the male scores are kind of tailing off. So men that are stronger are getting stronger at a greater rate than are women. I hope that makes sense. It's hard to show without showing the picture. I don't want to show the picture, though. All right. So take home from this. Well, let me back up for just a second. There's some nice figure here on the show. Basically, the data I talked to you about, it also is shown here. Let me show you. To our surprise, the female athletes, this is from the authors, though active in sports, handball and judo, where hand grip strength is trained in each training session, matched only 25th percentile of the male control group. So if you just looked at the average female athlete translated into 25th percentile for the untrained men. Okay, untrained men. The summary was the mean maximal hand grip force differs by more than 200 newtons, with only a small overlap of strength distribution, no significant influence of hand size. Appreciable differences in the order of 100 newtons remain about 90 when using lean body mass. Surprisingly, even the group of highly trained female athletes matched only 25th percentile. Are men and women different? Yeah, they are. This is just one study, but I will go back to that third point they made. That was an uncited statement. Like, you don't make statements like that, and it doesn't get through a peer review process if it's not something that is obvious. Okay, I'm not trying to be coy. I'm not trying to be anything else than reading the study too. Okay, and I will put the link to the study. There's lots of these type of studies out there. This is just one among many. If we're going to follow the data, let's follow the data. I'll see you guys in the next one.